What happens when a private mistake becomes a public scandal? How far can one woman twist the truth before the man she humiliated quietly turns it into a lawful endgame? This is how I let my ex mark me, and how my husband made sure I paid for it the right way. I'm Elara Quinn, 32, and everyone says I ruined my own marriage over something stupid. Maybe they're right, but I still think Nathan overreacted. It wasn't cheating. Not really. Not in the way people mean when they whisper that word. It was art, expression, closure. At least that's what I told myself when I let Adrian, my ex, tattoo his initials just below my collarbone. The design was beautiful, subtle, almost elegant. I didn't think it mattered that much, not until the morning light caught it and Nathan saw. He didn't shout or throw things like men in movies. He just looked at me, quiet and strange, and said nothing at all. That silence felt worse than anger. I tried to joke, to say it was symbolic, but his face didn't change. Later, I told Chloe over coffee that he was being dramatic, that men always want to control women's bodies when they feel insecure. She laughed, and I felt proud for a moment, powerful even. I posted a picture, cropped close, just the ink and a hint of skin. Within hours, the comments started. That's how everything began, with a secret I thought I could control. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. It started the night I showed him. We'd been distant for weeks, barely talking except about work or bills, and I thought maybe something bold would wake him up. I waited until Elliot was asleep, then called Nathan upstairs. He came into the bedroom still holding his tablet, his face tired from whatever late project he was working on. I said I wanted to show him something. He looked wary, like he already sensed it wasn't good news. I unbuttoned my shirt halfway and stepped closer to the light. The ink shimmered faintly on my skin. Adrian's initials, stylized like an abstract symbol. Nathan blinked once, then again, as if he couldn't quite believe it. He asked in a quiet voice what it was. I said it was art, nothing more, something I did for myself. He stared a few seconds longer, then set his tablet on the dresser very carefully. He asked if I understood how disrespectful it was. I told him he was overreacting, that it wasn't even about Adrian, that people get tattoos all the time. He didn't raise his voice, but the silence between each word felt heavier than shouting. He said he didn't know who I was anymore. I felt my chest tighten, but pride won. I told him maybe if he noticed me once in a while, I wouldn't need reminders of who I used to be. He just stood there. I could feel how calm he was, like he'd already decided something. I hated that. I wanted a fight, emotion, something real. Instead, he just nodded once and left the room. The door clicked behind him, soft but final. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the tattoo in the mirror. It looked bolder now, darker under the lamp. I texted Chloe a picture before I could change my mind. She sent a string of heart emojis and said it was hot. That made me feel better, like I'd taken back control. I posted a cropped version to my story, no names, just the line of ink. The likes came fast. I fell asleep proud of myself. The next morning, Nathan didn't say a word. He made coffee, packed Elliot's lunch, and left early. I told myself he was sulking. When I walked into the kitchen, I noticed a single item on the table, our shared calendar, open to the week ahead. In small, precise handwriting, he'd written one note under Friday. Downtown, 09:45. I laughed, thinking he was trying to be mysterious or guilt-trip me. I sent him a text saying maybe he should book a couples session instead. He didn't reply. By noon, my phone buzzed non-stop. Co-workers reacting to the post, Chloe tagging me in comments. A few DMs from people asking who AB was. I deleted the story, annoyed at the attention I had wanted just hours earlier. When Nathan came home that night, he barely looked at me. He set his keys down, nodded at Elliot, then walked into his office and shut the door. I heard the lock click, then the faint buzz of a phone vibrating somewhere inside. By Monday, everyone at work had seen it. I didn't even realize how far the photo spread until I walked into the design studio and felt the air shift. Two of the interns stopped talking mid-sentence. My manager, Ms. Tully, gave me this polite professional smile that said she knew everything but wouldn't say a word. I pretended not to notice. I set my bag down, opened my laptop and acted busy. But every time I looked up, someone was glancing at me, then quickly away. It was Chloe's comment under the photo that made it explode. She finally did it. Closure ink for the win. People connected the dots fast. At lunch, Megan from accounting leaned over and asked if Nathan really didn't mind the initials. I said he was supportive, that he understood symbolism. I could hear how fake I sounded, but she seemed to believe it, or maybe she just wanted the gossip. When I got home that night, Nathan wasn't there. His jacket was missing from the hook, and Elliot said Daddy was at work again. I texted him twice, then gave up. Chloe called later, laughing, saying the photo had been shared in some private Facebook group for tattoo inspiration. She said I should feel flattered. I tried to laugh too, but ended up asking if she'd maybe overshared it. She said I needed to relax and own my story. That night, I opened my own post again and stared at the cropped image. It looked careless now, desperate. I deleted it for good, hoping no one had screenshotted it. The next day, HR called me in. Ms. Tully smiled gently, said something about personal branding and how the office valued professionalism. I nodded, pretending to be calm. She ended the talk with, "You might want to keep certain images private next time." The phrase "next time" stung, like she assumed there'd be more drama. When I walked out, my co-workers wouldn't meet my eyes. That evening, I tried to call Nathan again, straight to voicemail. I texted him that we needed to talk about how people were misreading everything. No answer. I started scrolling through his public calendar, something we used to share for errands and Elliot's school events. Most entries were normal: bills, meetings, grocery reminders. Then I saw new folders labeled Household, Elliot, Personal Notes, everything neat, color-coded. My chest went tight. I told myself he was just being organized, but something about the titles made my stomach twist. I sent Chloe a screenshot, joking that Nathan was probably cataloging how dramatic I was. She replied with laughing emojis and told me to stop spiraling. Later that night, while I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed again. A new comment under a reposted version of the photo. "So brave. Hope your husband appreciates your honesty." My reflection looked smug and hollow at the same time. From the hallway, I heard the front door open, then close softly. When I turned off the light, the sound of a group chat pinged from the bedroom. Nathan's mother had tagged me in a comment. The family vacation was supposed to fix everything. I booked it myself, a beachfront rental, 3 nights, everything picture perfect. Nathan agreed without emotion, probably for Elliot's sake. I told myself a few sunsets and shared breakfast would remind him what we had, but when we packed, he barely spoke. He carried bags to the car while I scrolled through outfits, planning photos I might post later. The first 2 days were normal enough, if strained. Nathan played with Elliot in the sand while I took pictures from my towel. I kept waiting for him to look at me, to say something, anything. When he finally did, it was about sunscreen. I snapped that he didn't need to manage me like one of his blueprints. He just nodded and went back to building a sandcastle with Elliot. The distance between us felt physical, not emotional. I hated it. On the 3rd morning, we went for a walk along the promenade. It was crowded, the air thick with music and sunscreen. I wore a loose linen shirt over my swimsuit, half-buttoned. I thought it looked casual, effortless. The breeze caught the fabric just right, and I didn't notice it had slipped open until I saw Nathan's mother's cousin, Marion, staring straight at my chest. Her face froze. Nathan followed her gaze. For a second, no one spoke. Then Elliot asked what everyone was looking at. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. He just took Elliot's hand and started walking back toward the rental. The rest of the family stayed awkwardly still, pretending not to notice. I laughed it off, saying the tattoo wasn't that big a deal, but the laughter came out too loud, brittle. When I caught up to Nathan, he was packing up Elliot's beach toys. I told him he could at least pretend to be on my side. He said he didn't see what side there was anymore. That made me furious. I told him he was embarrassing me in front of everyone, that he could at least try to act like a husband. He looked at me then, really looked, and said he'd been trying for a long time. I just never noticed. Then he picked up Elliot and walked toward the car. That evening, while Elliot slept, I found Nathan standing on the hotel balcony. The sky was red and gold, the waves loud. He had his phone in his hand, camera open. For a second, I thought he was taking a picture of the view, until the flash reflected faintly in the window behind him, aimed not at the sea, but at me, sitting inside. I called his name. He said he was just saving memories. His tone was too even. I followed him outside and tried to make him look at me, to argue, to react. I said maybe he should admit he was jealous, that he'd always hated that Adrian was more creative than him. Nathan didn't answer. He just kept looking at the horizon. I told him silence was manipulative, that he was playing the victim to make me look cruel. He finally said quietly, "You don't need my help for that." Then he went inside. I stayed out there, furious, shaking, but when I checked my phone later, the flash image haunted me. It wasn't artistic or dramatic, just clinical, factual, like evidence. I tried to tell myself he'd delete it, that it didn't mean anything. The next morning, he acted perfectly normal, cheerful even, helping Elliot pack his toys and thanking the hotel staff. I convinced myself that meant things were getting better. But when I opened his tablet to check our reservation email, the screen showed a folder titled Vacation 2025. Inside, I saw thumbnails of photos, the beach, the balcony, and one unmistakable shot of me, the tattoo exposed. That night, as we drove home, Nathan hummed softly to the radio while I stared out the window. Each time the car slowed, I thought he might say something. He didn't. When we reached our driveway, he turned off the engine, looked at me and said, "You don't need to worry about appearances anymore." Then he got out. From somewhere behind us, a faint camera shutter clicked again. When we got back home, I expected things to settle down, but the silence only grew heavier. Nathan went straight back to work, acting like nothing had happened. He kissed Elliot goodbye in the mornings, but barely glanced in my direction. I tried to match his calmness, pretending I didn't care. The truth was, the quiet was eating at me. I needed some kind of reaction, any reaction. The first sign of real fallout came at the school pickup line a few days later. I stood by the fence scrolling through my phone when I noticed two mothers whispering, glancing my way. One of them tilted her head toward my chest, then quickly looked away. My heart sank. The photo from vacation, someone must have shared it. When Elliot came running toward me, he asked why people were looking funny. I told him it was nothing, but he frowned and said, "Grandma said Daddy's sad." I laughed too loudly and said Daddy was just tired. That evening, I tried to bring it up to Nathan, but he only asked if Elliot had done his homework. I said yes, then started talking about how people were gossiping. He didn't look up from his laptop. I said it was unfair that everyone judged me when they didn't know the full story. He said quietly, "They probably know enough." I told him he was supposed to defend me. That's what husbands do. He looked at me then and said, "I don't even know who I'm defending anymore." The next day, I got a message from Margaret, his mother, asking if I could stop by her house. I told myself it was just a normal visit. Maybe she wanted to see Elliot. When I arrived, she had tea ready, and that polite, heavy calm she used when she was about to lecture someone. She said she'd seen the photo. I tried to explain, It was all a misunderstanding, a creative expression gone wrong. She didn't interrupt, just waited. When I finished, she said, "You think love means you can do whatever you want and call it art." I told her she was being dramatic, that Nathan was overreacting, and she was enabling him. She smiled, sad and tired, and said, "No, Elara, he's learning how to protect himself." I hated how calm she was. I said she'd never liked me, that she'd been waiting for me to slip up. She didn't argue. She just said, "You wanted attention, now you have it." I left before she could say more. That night, I tried to fix things by posting a short video on social media about self-love and authenticity. I spoke about how women should be free to express themselves without shame. The comments started pouring in. Some supportive, many mocking. A few were cruel enough to make my throat burn. I deleted it within the hour, but the damage was done. The following weekend, the community center hosted a small neighborhood event. Nathan insisted we still attend for Elliot's sake. We arrived separately, but everyone noticed. I tried to act normal, smiling and chatting, but the looks followed me everywhere. When I tried to stand beside Nathan, he shifted slightly, making space between us. One of his co-workers asked if everything was okay. Nathan smiled politely and said, "We're handling things privately." I spent most of the evening pretending to check my phone, while people whispered behind me. When it was time to leave, Nathan took Elliot's hand and said they'd walk home. I asked if he wanted me to come along. He said, "We're fine." As I watched them go, Elliot looked back once, confused. I wanted to call after them, but my voice stuck. The crowd started to applaud for something, a raffle maybe, and the noise covered everything. I went to my car, sat in the dark for a while, and then the message came through. A single text from Nathan. "We'll talk soon. Properly." I stared at the screen until it dimmed, the echo of Elliot's earlier question replaying in my mind. "Are we still a family?" After that message, days passed with no follow-up. Nathan moved into the guest room without discussion. He didn't announce it or explain. One night, he just carried his pillow and a folded blanket down the hall. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "It's easier for both of us." I laughed and said he was being dramatic, but my voice cracked. He didn't answer. The door closed quietly, and from then on, I could hear him moving around, only in the mornings and late at night, as if he timed his life to avoid mine. I tried to pull him back into conversation through Elliot. Family breakfasts, weekend plans, anything. He agreed to each thing in short, polite sentences, then kept his distance. One morning, I brought him coffee and mentioned maybe we should take another trip, just the two of us. He said he was busy that weekend. When I asked what with, he said, "Sorting things out." He didn't look at me when he said it, which made it worse. Later that week, I noticed changes around the house. A folder appeared on his desk labeled Documents. Then another marked Expenses. On his computer, color-coded spreadsheets covered the screen. I didn't see what they contained, but he closed them fast whenever I entered the room. The silence between us turned from heavy to frightening. At the supermarket, I ran into Chloe. She looked awkward, as if she didn't know what to say. She mumbled something about seeing my self-love video before glancing toward the dairy section and pretending to check her phone. I asked if she wanted to grab coffee soon, but she said she was swamped. That was a lie. Chloe never turned down coffee. It hit me then how fast people disappear when things get messy. Back home, I caught Nathan in the garage sorting boxes. He said he was organizing donations. I tried to sound casual, asking if he was donating his marriage too. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't make everything a performance." I told him he was cold, distant, impossible to reach. He said maybe I was just finally noticing what distance feels like. That hurt more than any insult could have. I followed him inside, demanding to know if he planned to leave. He set the box down, met my eyes and said, "You'll know when the time comes. I'll handle it properly." His tone was calm, almost kind, and that scared me. I shouted that he was acting self-righteous, that he wasn't perfect either. He didn't argue. He just said, "I'm aware of my faults. I'm trying to correct them." Then he walked past me into the house. That night, I stood outside his office door and listened. I could hear faint tapping on his keyboard, then the whir of the printer. Papers slid out one by one, followed by the soft rustle of pages being stacked. I told myself it was work-related, but the timing didn't feel right. The printer stopped, replaced by the click of a drawer closing. In the morning, he was gone before sunrise. A sticky note on the counter read, "Elliot's drop-off handled. Don't worry, nothing else. No goodbye, no explanation." The guest room looked stripped, only sheets and a book left behind. I sat in the kitchen staring at the note, wondering what "handled properly" meant. For the first time, I felt afraid, not of losing him, but of being left out of whatever story he was now writing. That night, I called Chloe again, straight to voicemail. Then I noticed the faint blue light under Nathan's office door. I pushed it open. The printer light blinked red. Out of paper. A single sheet lay in the tray, face down. I picked it up and read only one line before I dropped it back. Property list, revised. The house felt unbearably quiet. From the hallway, I could hear Elliot laughing softly in his sleep, and somewhere behind me, the printer began to hum again. It happened on a Thursday morning, clear and ordinary. I was running late, trying to find Elliot's missing shoe while Nathan stood by the doorway checking his watch. He looked calm, dressed sharper than usual, crisp shirt, no trace of fatigue. When I asked if he could drop Elliot at school, he said he already planned to. His voice was polite, almost formal. That tone made me uneasy. After they left, the house felt strange, too clean, too quiet. I wandered into his office, thinking maybe I'd finally look through those folders. But the drawers were empty, the desk cleared. Even the framed photo of us from our wedding was gone. My heart kicked hard, but I told myself he'd just taken things to the office. Around noon, I drove downtown to meet a client. The plaza outside the courthouse was busy, people moving in and out, carrying papers, talking on phones. As I crossed toward the cafe, I saw Nathan standing by the steps, holding a folder. For a moment, relief washed over me. I thought he'd changed his mind, that he'd finally come to talk. I called his name. He turned, saw me, and nodded once, like he'd been expecting me. Before I could reach him, a man in a navy suit stepped up beside me and asked my name. I answered automatically. He handed me a sealed envelope, saying it was official service. The words barely registered. I looked down and saw my full name printed neatly on the first page inside a clear sleeve. My breath caught. Divorce petition, temporary orders, custody schedule. The edges of the paper fluttered in the wind. Nathan didn't move toward me. He just stood there, calm, his hands in his pockets. People glanced our way, curious but polite. I said his name again, louder this time, but he didn't flinch. I wanted to scream that he was making a scene, that he could have talked to me privately. Instead, he said quietly, "This is private. I'm just following the process." His tone was steady, unshakable. I started to speak, to explain, to remind him of everything we'd built, but the words tangled in my throat. He thanked the man in the suit, then turned to me. "You said once that everything was about expression," he said. "Consider this mine." Then he walked past me, down the steps, toward his car. I stood there frozen, the envelope clutched in my hand. A few people nearby pretended not to look, but I could feel their eyes anyway. My cheeks burned. The papers felt heavier by the second. I tried to call after him, but my voice cracked. He didn't look back. Margaret appeared then, holding Elliot's hand. I hadn't even noticed her car parked by the curb. Elliot smiled when he saw me but didn't run over. Margaret said Nathan had asked her to bring him for a quick errand. I looked at her, desperate, but she only said, "It's better this way, Elara." Her tone was soft but final. Elliot asked if we were all going home together. I couldn't answer. Margaret crouched beside him, smoothing his hair, and said they'd grab lunch first. Nathan rejoined them at the crosswalk. He bent to say something to Elliot, who nodded and took his hand. They crossed without looking back. The plaza noise dimmed, the chatter, the city hum, until all I could hear was the wind flicking the pages of the envelope. My fingers trembled as I held it tighter. I wanted to chase after them, to shout that it wasn't fair, that this wasn't how love was supposed to end, but I couldn't move. The courthouse doors swung shut behind me with a dull, metallic echo. The sound seemed to last forever. Then everything went quiet. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.